There you go.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Identity and Sexuality panel, Representation in LitRPG and Fantasy. My name is Rose Reynolds. My pen name that you probably know me by is TJ Reynolds. I'm really excited about this panel. I'm here with 5 amazing authors, and I'd just like to start by having you introduce yourself, maybe your most famous work, and then a superpower that you would choose if you had to.
Ooh.
Katie?
Oh, neat, cool. Okay, so I'm Katie. Like Kate, I'm Katie. So it's that lazy. I'm Katie Hanna. I write LitRPG with strong female or non-binary characters. You probably know me from Somni Online. It's a 7-book series, or System Apocalypse Australia, which is co-written with Tao Wong. Has a mom and 2 kids. And the picture I have behind me is my non-binary character, which has been less popular, sadly, but it is my favorite. And it's called Rise, Last Chance series. And my superpower, I would want mind reading, like a memory, because psionics have always been my favorite. So.
Awesome. You're up, Natasha.
Hi guys, I'm Natasha. This is kind of my first panel. In terms of writing, I've had a few books published. My latest being something called Drex Blackout, which is like a military horror book. And I've also been trying to get into script writing. I've been sending a few scripts to like Coverfly and a few other contests, and they got a few prizes. So I'm excited about that as well. As a superpower, I guess freezing time. That sounds like fun to me.
Yeah, that's a good one. We have up next EC Godhand, who also goes by Emily or M.
That's me. EC Godhand, also known as Emily. I wrote the Heartfire Healer series, which was part of the extended universe for Viridian Gate Online. It follows the priest-cleric type character and has, lesbians, non-binary characters. Best one is Corvus the Plague Doctor. It's just Plague Doctors all the way down. And I think my superpower just talking to animals.
Awesome. That's a fun one. How about you, Kit Falbo?
I'm the author of The Crafting of Chess, is my most well-known one. I guess superpower I would pick probably something to do with cognitive speeding up. You kind of like slow down your perception and speed up your cognitive abilities, so you could like think real fast.
Nice. I love that one. All right, and last of all, we have JP Valentine.
Hello, everyone. I'm JP, or John, or Nixia. You may know me from This Quest is Bullshit, or The Nothing Mage, or Dungeon Devotee. My superpower would be probably perfect recall, so I can keep track of all of the numbers and everything going on in the books.
That would be so fucking convenient, right?
Right. Or like what you wrote.
Awesome. Fantastic. I have a couple questions prepared. This one I was really excited about. Using like Mulan or Eowyn, I Am No Man, as prime examples, how can drag conflict or interact with the story? Either something that you've done or something that you've seen that you're just really excited about, or you don't even need to give an example if you like shut down. Just talk about drag in narrative. I'm sorry, Katie. I'm fucking.
No, I'm like thinking.
I know. Right. I kind of went brainy on that one, but it's good, right?
I can take this one if
really
Katie wants to think.
You take that one. I'm thinking.
Like Katie, have a moment. So I hadn't announced a new series I was working on yet, and it still has like working titles and everything in draft, but one of the key features was due to the perceptions of society, similar to Milan. It's a cultivation novel that follows this woman who has like yin-yang ghost eyes, and how there's like spirit cultivation, how she's able to like use the ghosts and command them and do more of like Taoist priest type cultivation to control them. But for she ends up in the company of this beautiful noble woman who is secretly also a cultivator, and they travel together, kind of like the black and white guard from Chinese mythology, taking all the ghosts, putting them back in hell. But for pretty much safety and to avoid detection and to play to the gender expectations of the world that they live in, the Taoist priest character basically masquerades as a man in order to have everyone leave the beautiful woman alone, because they're like, oh, well, there's already a man with her, so we're not even going to try it. He looks like he could kick our ass. So she is secretly over here with, like, you know, her hair pulled back and, like, you know, dressed in drag, basically like this drag king, pretending to be a man. And I was talking with my co-author on that about how do we handle like gender, how do we you know, address this, do we address it with the market that we have? And we're having some really good conversations, so I'm super excited for that one. I hope that we're able to pull it off well. After you guys read, you can let me know. But just like touching on how the gender expectations can suddenly change based upon how people perceive you. How do people change how they treat you based on what gender they perceive you to be?
Absolutely. That's awesome. I can't wait to hear about that title. KT, have you recovered?
I just like so I don't have any experience with bringing drag into it. I only have the experience of writing a character without gendering them at all, which is not quite the same. So it's then up to readers' expectations of what they think the character is. If they think the character is non-binary, you know, he, she, like it doesn't. But for when you're actually bringing drag into it, when a woman has to dress as a man for a specific reason, or a woman, a man perhaps has to dress as a woman, which I don't think I've ever really seen done much.
Unfortunately,
Yeah, it's usually done for their own protection, which is just something I haven't done in my own books. So I don't feel like I can answer that with, you know, expertise.
That's fair. That's fair.
Sorry.
Natasha, you want to take a crack?
Well, I was just thinking about how, not even really about characters, but like authors, like back in the day, like a lot of them female authors pretended to be males just to get more representation and get more people to read them.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, yeah, I mean, you know, like they couldn't really see authors back then in time, like in the 1920s or whatever, so they could hide that pretty well. But in terms of characters, I mean, it's not something that's, in terms of drag, it's not something that's very done too often, unfortunately. I mean, when it's done, it's usually done for, you know, sometimes it's protection, sometimes it's comedic purposes too. And it's not only done for like more detailed reasons than that, unfortunately. It needs more, you know, it needs more details.
Got you.
That's my take on it.
This question's falling a little flat. Kit or JP, do either one of you want to jump in?
I'll jump in. In my novella, The Card Job, there's a scene where the main character, it's a VR MMO, so the main character dies, so he goes to his alt character, who is a female explosive expert in this kind of a pop culture, sci-fi, cyberpunk, space opera type setting, and there's a whole decent chapter of him alting as this female character that he hardly ever plays in that little novella that I do. I've also explored some ideas, and we all have dead WIPs, you know, things that we've worked on, you know. I've always been fascinated about using the VR or the isekai system to have somebody basically go into either a body they're not comfortable with or a body that they want to be in that is cross-gender in that way, depending upon how I want to do the story.
That's awesome. JP, how do you feel? You're either going to take the first or the next one, or are you going to pass?
So I actually touched on this topic a little bit in This Quest is Bullshit. Less so as far as intentional drag, and more so kind of playing with the idea of, in a world where people are assigned a quest, people are assigned a class, what happens if someone who identifies as one gender is assigned a class that is historically gender segregated? And for the most part within the story, it's played for laughs because it's a comedy book. The other characters kind of make fun of him about it, and he plays into it. He plays up being like, yeah, I'm your spiritual advisor, I'm your priestess, you should listen to me about these like romantic things and all of this.
Dying during that, by the way. That was so good.
So it's I've yet to really tackle, I would say, a lot of the
Mm.
more important issues, largely a result of writing comedy as opposed to a really serious story. But I think there are a lot of ways to have fun with it in ways that don't hurt anybody. There are a lot of ways to write stories involving a little bit of gender bending or LGBT characters or the entire spectrum, the entire gamut, without the story being about that and without that being like the main thing about that character.
Absolutely. Thank you. That was about what I wanted on that one. This next one, in your own opinion, why is it important to include characters with non-conforming gender expressions or non-heterosexual sexualities? Why push against the grain, so to speak? I'm going to start with you and flip backwards. Sorry. What were you going to jump in, Kate?
Oh no, I was just going to answer. I actually have my answer for this one.
Okay, we'll do JP next time. Sorry, KT, you're super excited.
Oh, okay. It's just for me. Okay, so I'm pansexual myself, and I'm straight presenting because my husband is a guy. But for me, I surround myself. I've got so many LGBTQ plus friends. I've got trans friends, gay friends, bisexual friends, gender fluid friends, non-binary friends. And for me, not putting them in my books is not representing my world. I don't need them to be, I never put them in because, oh my gosh, I think, this is like, I'm making a statement. I put them in because for me, they're people. And if I don't represent them, then I'm not representing the world and I'm not representing the people around me. And I love those people. And if they don't get to see themselves in books, well, that's shit. So for me, that's my reason for those people being in my books, because to me, they're characters and they're larger than life and they're 3D and they're in my head, just like my friends, just like the people I love. I'm not gonna, put them in the back, and I'm not gonna make them a statement. They're just a part of my world. So,
Awesome.
And I'm gonna cry.
Here's your welcome on this panel, 100%. And I did want to say, Jedrius had a really good comment just now. That's going with the grain, actually. I completely agree. I was just mostly talking about heteronormativity or the expectation of compulsive heteronormativity. Yada, yada, yada. Thank you, KT. That was awesome. Natasha, we're going to bounce to you.
Sure, sounds great. Like KT, I have a lot of friends that are also LGBTQ and, bi, and just a really great community here. But I know that's not the case in a lot of parts of the world. And, especially red states, for example, in the US, and just seeing all that discrimination, hatred online. Yeah, absolutely. We need more representation in books and media. And there's still a little bit right now. I mean, I was looking at the stats just for fun, and it's just like, someone at university, there was like 4,000 books in a library, and they checked and only like 3% had like representation of that. So to me, it's super important that they have to be represented and presented well as well, because I mean, it's just when they're first introduced in the media, they're just really one-dimensional, stereotypical, and just having them fleshed out, be three-dimensional, that has to happen way more often.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. That was awesome. Emily, you're up next.
All I keep thinking is, why would I not write myself into the book? Why don't, like, I get to be the hero for once? Like, we all, there's so many other people who also feel that way, where they're like, oh, well, I'm represented. I'm here as the side character, as the best friend, or that weird, couple that is played up for laughs or whatever. And they never actually get to like see themselves, let alone see themselves like be the hero and overcome and, be lauded and overcome these struggles. And so it's like, well, it's the same answer I had on the last panel of, well, I'll just write it my own damn self then, and there's going to be other people out there who would also want to read it. So if I'm in a place where I'm able to take the sales hit that I know is inevitably going to come from it, and all of the 1-star reviews that say too many lesbians, which, to answer the question, how many is too many lesbians? Apparently 2. which I think is the minimum number of lesbians that should be included. And so it's like, I figure if I'm in a place where I can, accept that hit, because it's only my mouth I have to feed, then I might as well, go for it and write the book that I would have wanted to read and find out in the wild.
Thank you. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Kit Falbo, you're up next.
Because people exist as they are, and you're building depth and character and reality. And as the writer, I am God, and my final word is whatever I want. I'm pretty much right for as an expensive hobby for fun, and I feel like everybody deserves to be in there, be good, bad, trans. It just the more human and you can make everything in your story, the better it ends up. I mean, I want people to hate my villains. I want people to love my heroes. I want people to have emotions and go through uncomfortable things if they have to, or through things that really endear them because they can relate.
Perfect. Thank you. JP?
All right, that's enough positivity. My answer is spite.
Yeah, bring it.
I love that.
So I grew up in what I would consider the California bubble, doing a lot of theater. So for my entire childhood, I probably had more LGBT friends than straight friends. And as I was first breaking into the scene, first serializing on Royal Road, I wanted to include some representation. I thought it would be good. I thought there just isn't enough LGBT representation, especially bi representation out there. So I, about halfway through my first book, wrote a chapter in which the main character kisses another man. And they immediately part. That's the extent of the romance in that book, at least. And the hate response was massive. It blew up. It was this whole multi-week drama across various platforms that kind of really solidified that, wow, this is something that needs to be addressed. I can't let these people stop me from writing representation. I can't shy away. I can't be afraid. These people don't want this kind of content out there. God damn it, I'm gonna make more of it.
That's like the perfect segue too. We've had a couple comments that are asking me about how you deal with the flack that comes with you. Bam, right there, exactly. I'm gonna go straight back with you, JP. It sounds like you've been through the ringer. I know a few of us have too, KT in particular. I'm not sure about everyone else's journey, but what did you do to work with that, work through it, or even use it to your benefit?
Well, I had the advantage that it kind of happened all at once. There was about a 24-hour period where I went from zero to this massive barrage of hate, which sucked. It was pretty awful at the time. But once I kind of got over that hill, once I kind of kept writing and saw all of these wonderful messages of support, all of these wonderful comments that were coming in alongside all of the hate and drowning it out in a lot of ways, I started learning to laugh at it, especially since some of the things people were saying were just absolutely hilarious. I got one of my top reviews on Amazon to this day reads, quote, "My problem is that I am not a homosexual," which, yeah, that does sound like your problem.
Yes.
And I would say learning to appreciate the cognitive dissonance in a lot of what these people are saying and a lot of the messages, I think has turned it into more so a source of entertainment for me than anything else.
Cognitive dissonance is a fucking fine term, isn't it? Kit, you're up next.
I'll write things into my stories kind of as Easter eggs based off reviews or comments or side things, because I'm a giant fan of Easter eggs in all of my books. There'll be some chapters that have 10 different references, and most people won't get them but me. But part of what I do in taking uncomfortableness is that. As for the ratings hits and the less sales. I don't really write for sales. Yes, I wish I could make enough money to quit my day job and write full time, but you know, it's really not why I write.
I mean, but it's a nice tent, though. I'm sorry, I had to. Emily?
So I'm with JP on this Spite, where I started to get the 1-star reviews where it's like, you know, it's a good story and I love the plot and all the mechanics. Just be aware that there is implied homosexuality and you know, terrible unless you're in lesbianism. So I did two things. One, I said, okay, well, she just had a crush on her, you know, person in book 1, and book 2 they're going to kiss, and by the end they're going to consummate the relationship, and then by book 3 they're going to be straight up married. I can make this gay, or we can keep going. It's just going to get more gay. I'm sorry, the more you complain, the more gay I'm going to make it. And then 2, I took all of those terrible reviews. I went to every single lesbian book group I could find. And I was like, are you a gamer? Are you in lesbianism? Please read this story that one person described as terrible, blah, blah, blah. And I just used it to work for it. But like on the serious side, it was starting to get to me because it tanked my audiobook sales. It tanked any sort of thing where people pretty much put me in the gay dungeon, which is not the fun sort of gay dungeon. You know, there's no snacks, there's nothing. It's terrible. Where it's just like, well, I don't want to read that book because I'm not a lesbian. There's no way I could identify with a person who thinks that her boss is a total jerkwad who tries to micromanage everything she does and tell her how to live her life. She's the only person to ever have that experience, I guess, because she's a lesbian, which we all know is not true. So I tried to focus on the positive comments from readers who came back and said, hey, I really wanted to thank you because I love this character. I love seeing myself in this character. And then having like multiple characters they could do that. And so it's like, okay, well, I don't like you guys. You made me feel bad and like I can't feed my cats as well because of you guys, but you guys, I like you. I'm going to keep writing for you. And you know, they were really so sweet. And so yeah, I love my readers. So I just get through it for them.
Awesome. Natasha?
So, bit of a funny story. Not really my writing, but I'm pretty fiery online. Like if someone says something inappropriate, I'll call them out on it, and that happened quite a few times. Eventually, some users got tired of that and tried to contact my husband on Facebook, basically saying, "Get your woman under control." The problem is his last name was Smith, and Smith is a very common name. And he actually ended up calling my old boss by accident and told to get his woman under control. So it's kind of like an awkward conversation later. It's like, So unfortunately, do that, and a little bit of stalking too. Unfortunately, I had to kind of limit my Facebook visibility. I had to like have all my friends hidden and my work information hidden, kind of all that fun stuff. But despite that negativity, you know, I really don't let it get me down. Like, you know, I don't let it stop me at all. And I choose to manage how often it bugs me. If it really bugs me, I just step away for a while, have a nature walk, and just breathe it all out. Yeah.
Thank you. KT?
So I've had what was it? Your pronouns don't matter in an apocalypse. Apparently, that's the title of one of my reviews.
That was too good.
Woke bullshit. Woke bull crap, I think was the title of another one. And then in the amount of reviews I have correcting my grammar for Somnia's mellow character who goes by they. It's not they, just choose he or she. It's that easy. They isn't a pronoun. Blah, blah. Anyway, dude, I swear, I've probably got like 2 or 3 dozen of them picking on the they between the audiobook and Amazon. So my response to these was, first of all, I was super upset because like, fuck you, dude. Let people exist. Fuck you, because I'm Australian and I swear. And then my response was to write a book with a character that wasn't gendered at all, ever. so that's it. Spite writing works. JP is right. Spite writing is a fantastic way to write. I do love it, and I may add one or two extra characters into the spectrum than I maybe would have usually because I'm spiteful. Yeah, I swear a lot. But yeah, that's kind of how I dealt with it, was to write. Sadly, those books didn't do very well, but it's okay. It was therapeutic for me. And I just, I'm just, no, fuck you. You're not going to quiet me because you object. I'll be louder. I'm very good at being loud. So yeah, so that's kind of how I deal with the. It still gets you down when you get that shit, but you kind of learn to go, nah, your loss. Yeah.
Absolutely. You
Yeah.
get the 1 star, and I've learned to be like, obviously they're not the right reader for you, right? You're
Yes.
finding the incels, basically.
Yep. And
But
sometimes it can be really good promo. Like
there you go.
Em said.
I did want to take a moment to thank everyone on the panel. I think some people who are highly triggered by this content think that authors are writing to get them or like to trigger them.
I know, right?
But really, I think I'm really happy that you 5 have written authentically and boldly, because it's easier and safer to not do that, and you chose not to. So that makes you all badasses in my book. Yeah. Next one. I know we're gonna have some feels. That's just how I fucking roll. Next question: in what ways have you used gender or sexuality to achieve characterization that can't be achieved in other ways? Let's start with Kit. Or anyone else who's on the spot has a great answer right now.
What was the question? You kind of cut out.
Oh, I didn't mean to.
Can you? Yeah.
In what ways have you used gender or sexuality to characterize a character in ways that you can't otherwise? It presents a unique opportunity. So I was just wondering how you've used their gender or sexuality to show who they are.
I mean, after thinking about this, I wrote a sci-fi novel called Intelligence Block about a techno wizard in the far future using technology to stimulate magic. So think somebody like David Copperfield-esque, but they're pretending to be this ancient old wizard, and the main character's big thing is always staying character. So he's kind of like grumpy old Gandalf in like his high-tech suit. Part of one of the terms and conditions of his employment, because he works for a big company doing their birthdays and other events for them. He was kind of hired because the daughter was really into it. He's actually a sex worker / therapist that he is actually assigned to go to as part of the conditions of his employment, to make sure that he's regulated, and because it's real work. And she plays a minor role in some of the events that happen later in the story, and I just wanted to have that as be like everyday part of society. And when people see him, come in, he's like this old ancient guy going into this thing, and he doesn't change out of his costume until he's in like the safe, secure room. So there's some humor in that when that happens in the book.
Awesome.
And it's just a fun thing to do.
Okay, so sorry.
No, you can go next, Katie.
I have an answer now. I was like, okay, have I done that? Like, I'm like sitting here going, oh, did I do that? And I was going to say, well, Kira is a mom, but no, you don't have to be a woman to be a mom. You don't have to be like female to be a mom. Like, you can be a mom no matter what. So then I thought, actually, I used Murmur Insomnia to vent my frustrations with the fact that as a female guild leader, and a raid leader, I ran into so much fucking sexism. And so for Murmur, that was a big part of her. And I mean, we got called a bitch and all the shit that you do in reviews. So that was fun as well. But Murmur finds out through the book that she is actually Pan, and the ending is awesome and it's really cool. But it's like a whole thing of self-discovery. But I initially had her as a raid leader, guild leader, because of how pissed off I always got at just being assumed that I couldn't play well. So that's the only time I've ever really done that.
All right.
So,
How about you, Natasha?
This is still kind of in concept work, so it's not really released yet. But right now, I'm kind of writing a story about this. Basically, it's an apocalypse, it's kind of underground world where this computer is kind of like corrupted and just likes to play with other people, and it's insane. And there's this woman who is like a mother, and her son was kind of corrupted by this computer and is kind of sick of himself. So she tries to seek out this computer, and the computer just tries to change everything that she is, like her identity, sexuality, gender. And it's about her afterwards, just trying to come to terms with that, who she is now, and how she can go back to what she wants to be. And just ideas I'm playing around with right now.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you. Emily?
I'm not sure I have a really good answer, and I keep thinking about it. Where one of the things that didn't heartfire with Lisette, the main character, is that technically all of the grief that she receives is never directly implied because of her gender. But one of my readers, who was more astute than even I am, pointed out how because of her gender from the real world that influenced how she perceived everything in the game world, in regards to like the antagonism and what she could reasonably get away with, sort of thing, and her growth of overcoming all of those restrictions that growing up as one gender placed on it. And technically she doesn't ever change gender, just the state of the world had changed. And so then who does she become when, like, she's a woman in both of them, but then how much more is there that she's able to show, changing the society that she's in? And then I was like, no, I should talk about Corvus, who everyone keeps trying to gender. And I got the same thing Katie did, where people were trying to correct the grammar mistakes, being like, you can't say them. And I'm like, Corvus is the sort of character that when you ask, like, who are you? I'm Corvus. I'm a plague doctor. Okay, how old are you? Well, that changes every year. It's hardly a good metric, don't you think? You cannot get anything from them. So by default, like, you don't necessarily know, and there's no visual cues that we often have in society of like long hair is for women, short hair is for men, or beard is for men. And it's like, well, I shaved this morning, so fuck off. Like, there's none of that with Corvus. They're a plague doctor, so then how do people treat them? And they don't know how to treat them because they don't have the cues from their gender, which is why Corvus is amazing, because they do not care at all. They're just going to be whoever they are. And I'm not sure if that actually answered the question, but
that was great. I loved it. JP, I was thinking about you, particularly your class thing again. You did a lot to show that character going through that struggle. Talk about that if you can.
Yeah, I would actually almost go so far as to say I aim for the opposite. I try to focus on the character's relationships with other people more so than gender or sexuality as defining them.
Mm-hmm.
I would say Preston, the priestess character, what makes him interesting to me, what makes I think that a lot of the humor work, is that he plays into it. He's kind of pushed into this situation that he's probably not uncomfortable with, of being shoehorned into a gender stereotype that doesn't match who he is. And rather than it sparking turmoil or being difficult for him, he leads into it, he accepts it, and he plays off of it. Mm-hmm. Beyond that in particular case, I generally try and just make character relationships that make sense. In the Nothing Mage, he kisses this other boy because he's at a really difficult, chaotic time in his life, and he's grown really attached to this one other character as the one stable piece in his entire world. And it's at the moment that they're being forced apart that there's this sudden additional romantic spark. I think making characters that work well together has, for me personally, been more important than making it about the sexuality or about who prefers what gender over the other.
Perfect. I appreciate that. Thank you. We had an interesting comment come up a little bit earlier. I don't know if we can get that back up. The Jesse Garner, do the harem or reverse harem genres support? Geneva, you're so good. An interesting one. You don't have to participate if you don't, but it brings up some interesting conflicts. I know that harem certainly gets problematic, and so does reverse harem at times, but it also potentially pushes against some expectations and maybe makes room for some interesting play. So let's start with you again, JP, and then work backwards.
I don't touch the genre particularly much. I, as a result, can't necessarily speak much on it outside of I know harems generally lean heavily into power fantasy and wish fulfillment, and as a result tend to be either A, very heteronormative, or B, the LGBT representation within tends to be like, oh, it's okay, all of the sister wives are also in love with each other, like as kind of an excuse for why having a harem is okay, which doesn't really sit right with me, but it's not my genre, so it's not something I really like should be talking about.
Okay, for sure. How about you, Kit?
Well, it's not something I genre that I write, and if I do go that route, it'd be more of a complex polycule, different hinges and moving parts and metas and all that jazz, more like real life. So it wouldn't necessarily the harem, and then you'd have to comment on things like unicorn hunting and uh, things like because I think that it's more negative than positive at this moment because there's some inherent toxicity both in harem and reverse harem. But as you see more authors try to do more of the poly ENM informed consent model, that it could be a very positive thing, but it's hard to say if that will actually sell. So
Daniel
for those who read
Shinhousen's
the
books
market,
are fucking amazing and good representation. I just wanted to say that just as a
Shin definitely.
his books are
yeah.
amazing.
Thank you, Kit. Did you want to
the
touch
only example I have?
Did you want to touch this one, Emily, or hell no?
I was going to say what Katie said. I think probably Daniel Shinhofen is the only harem writer that I am at least aware of, because from when I've read harem and spoken with some of the authors, there's very much a particular niche of wish fulfillment where you don't have to worry necessarily about the emotional dynamics and power dynamics that come with like actual polyamory, and worrying about making your metamorphs happy while also dealing with that, which there's a lot of potential there for there to be some representations of like, well, how do the women get along? How do they explore their own relationships separate from their relationship with the man? Oftentimes in harem, the genre readership and expectations require that to not be a factor, and no one else can have this woman, not even the other women, without the man say so or approval. And so I don't think that necessarily the harem books, as they are and as people, the readers, wish them to be, are necessarily positive towards representation, because it has a very like almost fetishized representation where it's like, oh, and this one is bisexual so that I can have the two girls kiss to make the man sexually happy. And that's not necessarily the representation that we're hoping for. But I also don't want to disparage the people who do have readerships who are looking for molecules and like an actual like real representation of how relationships can go. So I don't want to say, boo, harem bad, because it's not. It's appealing to a particular niche, and there's people who like it. They're okay to like it. I'm not going to shame them for liking it, but it doesn't necessarily help like LGBT representation unless you go the way of like Daniel Shinhofen and show like an actual healthy, relationship.
Got you. Natasha?
I'm kind of similar to like Kid and JP. It's not my wheelhouse, so I'm not really an expert on it. All I can say is that I I agree with all of it. It's a very her niche. It's kind of a sensitive topic, and I hope whoever writes it does a lot of research and represents it correctly in a positive way. Yeah, but at the same time, it can be a hard sell to otherwise. And yeah, all I can say is I hope it's just done right when it's written.
Got you. Yeah.
Also, don't write it. Not my thing, but I like Aether's Blessing, actually, from Daniel Schönhofen. Love that series. Love Daniel. He does an amazing job with the relationships in his books. His characters are fantastic. So as far as representation goes, that would be my benchmark. But the harem genre, or reverse harem, like, it appeals to a subset of readers and they obviously enjoy it, but I don't think that's what they're looking for. Like, they're obviously not looking for the representation there. So yeah, I can't answer that question really either.
Fair enough.
Except for the tap Daniel's books.
Right, we plug Schönhofen a lot, so he does deserve it. So yeah. This next one's interesting. If you're not familiar with what queer coding is, sometimes a show or a movie or a book will essentially hint at someone being queer, but never really give you the kiss or give you the confirmation to seal the deal. So when does queer coding become problematic, and when can it be seen as an organic and subtle expression of the narrative? It's like a tough balance between like hitting the nail on the head, or are you just, yeah, exactly, queer baiting? The comment just came in. Yeah, let's try that one. Can you jump in on that, Katie?
Yeah, I don't think I queer bait. I don't think I also don't see how I would ever want to. Like, I'm very,
Just
my character is queer, or I feel like if they're putting that in deliberately, then that's maybe like they're not honest about why they have queer characters in their books. If they're not 100% definitely queer, if that makes sense. I haven't read any books like that. And I definitely don't write them like that. So I mean, I don't think I like that. Just so.
Yeah, and moving forward, it doesn't have to be about your books. We're just talking about gender and sexuality in lit RPG and fantasy. So, Natasha, what do you think?
I think actually the best example I've seen of this recently, I don't know if anyone's seen it, but the show Supernatural, where like they're hinting, their relationship between like Dean and Castiel for like years and years and years, created a whole bunch of fan fiction, and then the second to last episode, Castiel basically says, "I love you" to Dean, and then nothing else happened, so it kind of was like a huge letdown to the fans. So yeah, it does definitely happen, certainly in media as well. I mean, again, if it's done right and there's a decent payoff to it, I mean, I can see how it can entice readers, but if there's no payoff, I can see how it aggravate readers too.
So it's about the payoff. I get it. What about you, Emily?
I was just thinking Supernatural, of like, commit to your gaze, you cowards. Like, it feels as if that due to, I had a reader once ask me, like, how do you manage like the sales hit versus with representation? Like, what is the best way that if I wrote, I could manage that? And oftentimes the answer that I've been told, and that I don't necessarily like, but does seem to be the most prudent answer, is you hide your gaze and use that trope. And so that way you can still like capture the queer audience and be like, oh, well, maybe they're gay. Maybe they're gonna kiss. Maybe it'll be the thing you want to keep watching on the chance that there might be a lesbian showing up in season 5, episode 14. And will we watch all seasons of 5 up to episode 14 to find that kiss? Yes, we will, because there's nothing else. And so they want to have that cake, and they also want to eat it too, because they don't want to alienate the straight readers and be like, oh, well, I don't want to watch that show. That's for gay people. And if I watch it, it'll make me gay. And I'm like, well, if it doesn't, it make you gay because you were liking and excited about it. And more than just like the interesting of the story and the characters and their personalities and how they whatever, then you can answer your own questions for yourself, sort of thing. But like, they try to have their cake and eat it too. They want to have the queer coding and baiting in order to try and entice and have representation. Then they get to say how good they are for being so representative, but they don't want to alienate anyone by actually like committing to it. And it's super frustrating because then everyone just kind of falls and it's like, well, why can't you do that? Why did you have to be explicit? And it's like, because I don't like that anymore.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. I totally agree. It seems like the payoff is important here. Kit?
Yeah, a lot of it is the promise and payoff, but I mean, it's also a complicated scale. You know, the Kinsey scale. You know, you have the scale of sexuality versus asexuality, and when you're writing these stories, very rarely is the sexuality a main plot thread. Usually it's just a side thing, if it even makes it into the plot progression of the story. What is the story about, you know? And then it gets complicated with the interactions and relationships. So, and people want that black and white. Will they kiss? Is it really appropriate for the characters? You know, is the supernatural? Is Dean still 3 feet in the closet and he just can't go that way? And even though Castiel will say the words, he won't. I mean, is it fair to say the writers could have made the right choice? Is it fair to say they're wrong? Anything can be criticized. It's complicated, and that's why we love writing, because we love writing complicated things, you know. So I mean, but obviously some people do it blatantly, and you know, and then there's some big issues.
All right. Thank you for pointing out the nuance. You're totally right on that. JP?
Yeah, it's obviously wildly complicated. I agree that you shouldn't necessarily have to be able to pin down your character's sexuality. Like you shouldn't necessarily be able to go, this character's gay, this character's straight, this character's bi, this character. Like, you don't have to be able to put a label to every single character. Things change, things shift, people are complicated. That said, I find it truly remarkable the extent to which the LGBT community is so starved for representation that they will satisfy themselves with queer baiting, with subtext, with things that aren't really there. And on the flip side, the extent to which there are straight readers, especially I think straight readers who don't really have LGBT friends, who won't notice it at all. We got a comment from Fane talking about hiding your gaze until the readers are invested. And in my experience, that is a horrible, horrible mistake, because the straight readers, the homophobic readers, will miss all of your subtext up until
they do.
Up until you finally give them a concrete reveal, and then they revolt.
6 books worth of subtext.
It took 24 chapters.
6 books. Yeah.
Yeah, you got me beat there. It took 24 chapters.
6 books of slow burn. 6 books of slow burn, and reviews going, well, that came out of left field, and fucking expect that, blah, 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 blah. What? How?
In my experience, that's been far and away the most common form of lampshaded homophobia. That's the most common kind of critique that you will see people hide their homophobic reviews with, by claiming that it wasn't foreshadowed, it came out of left field, it wasn't properly set up. And I'm not angry that he kissed a man. I'm angry that this wasn't set up. It came out of nowhere.
And you're like, what? Nowhere? Oh my God. All the breadcrumbs the entire way. I had loaves of bread on the fucking floor. I'm sorry. It's a sore point.
And it
go ahead and wrap it up, JP. Sorry.
One of my the very first 1-star reviews I got went along the lines of accusing me of, quote, writing a genuinely good story to get readers invested just so that I could hit them over the head with wokeness.
Oh, you evil woke bastard, you.
It's a wonderful compliment. Really.
Yeah, apparently I'm making up for some sort of non-woke
The gay agenda. That's what you did.
Yeah, I missed the memo this month.
All right.
gender again.
We've had a lot of talk about sexuality and gender, but I think we've missed some parts of the scale there. What about agendered or asexual characters in LitRPG specifically? My mind is going toward dungeon cores or like familiars, spirits or incorporeal beings. How does that make LitRPG like an interesting place to have these conversations and to write these characters? I think it's a unique opportunity. Let's go with you, Kit.
I love my side characters and companions, and be it talking animals or artificial intelligences, and things I can play around with in some agender state. I mean, I just think I think that it's fun. All characters are fun, and the truth is, when you read a lot of lit RPGs, a lot of the characters actually are fairly asexual because the story is usually has nothing to do with that. So you really never are actually clued in on the sexuality of the main characters unless the author they puts it in your face. 'Cause it's like they're hacking, they're slashing, they're dominating, and sometimes even a plot point is that the character is actually kind of avoiding a lot of that side of themselves. It even becomes a joke. I mean, I've been reading Defiance of the Fall, and even though they do have some straight relationship stuff going on, a lot of what is doing it is he's fairly asexual in that he doesn't really have a lot of intimate relations with people. And there's a joke that he's the deviant assurer because of some rumors about him, and it's kind of playing up that lack of interest versus people's perceptions. And I kind of find that a little bit humorous at time. On that scale of asexuality versus drive.
Awesome. Thank you. What about you, Natasha? And we're getting a little bit, keep them short-ish.
Yeah. For sure, yeah. Like full disclaimer here, I haven't actually written a whole lot of asexual characters. It's something I want to write, but it's something I want to research more before I do. And I kind of want to read more lit RPGs, just as a reference too for that as well. But yeah, I can't really answer that too well, just because I don't feel like I've researched it enough.
Good point. Okay, that's fair. What about you, JP?
I would say Eve's sexuality in TQIB is largely undefined. There's a couple of sequences where characters kind of make fun of her for getting kind of suspiciously close to a particular queen. But for the most part, the character doesn't explore that whatsoever and entirely behaves asexually, even if she never claims that label, even if she never like has that conversation. I think Kit kind of had the right of it in that a lot of lit RPG characters are often asexual by default because it tends not to come up. And as a result, unless you explicitly point out that a character is asexual, it can be really difficult to pin down whether or not you actually have representation there, whether or not you're actually like including ace characters.
Good point. Yeah, that's fair. Emily?
I'm not sure I've written any other characters that would fit that, other than Corvus, which I don't need to elaborate on again. I do have a character in a different upcoming series that's asexual, but I don't want to give more details on that till I have everything like more defined around it. That can't be the whole pitch. So I'm not sure I have more to contribute here, unfortunately.
That's fine. Let's go to Katie.
I don't have any like dungeon core characters or anything. I have a lot of non-binary or agender or gender fluid characters. I'm Demi myself, so I'm not ace, but I'm pretty fucking close. Ask my husband. Poor guy. But I don't know. I have a lot of agender friends, and gender fluid friends, and I always have those characters in my books, especially in Rise and Rebel. I have a character who is just not gendered, and like you said, when you're writing it, and if you're writing in first person, like, you don't ever have to. Why would you have to gender your character? There's no reason they need to be gendered, right? Like, why? It doesn't matter if you fleshed out your character and they have a great backstory and history and they have motives and they have this amazing person that they are. Who gives a shit about gender? Like, it shouldn't matter. Maybe that's my pan me talking, but that's just how I react to human beings. Like, you're a human first, and your gender is what it is and what you feel it is, and it doesn't matter because you're by and large a great person. And that's what I try and make my good people anyway. My villains are bad, evil and stuff. That's also fun. But yeah, I just, I just feel like, and now I've totally lost the question. Yeah, as far as that goes, I don't even feel like, yeah, there you go. I don't even know if I answered.
Yeah, we're gonna.
Now my brain
end
just
up-
went off on a tangent.
Awesome. Honestly, this has been a really fun panel. I think we just started scratching the surface as far as like exploring these things and like tapping into the potentials, right? Like JP made a great point about how, I mean, how many AIs are in LitRPG that don't have a gender? And it seems like it's completely unexplored or invisible, which isn't quite the same thing as intentionally digging in a little bit to see what potentially could be found there. But before we sign off, I want you to shamelessly plug yourself, brag, boast, and sell your fucking books. Let's just start at the top and move down. KT, Natasha, Emily, Kit, and then JP. Rock it.
Ta-da! If you want to read books, oh god, of course, because I've got the thing on. If you want to read books with a non-gendered main character, my Rise series, book 3 will come out next year and be finished. I also have my Somnia Online series and my System of Apocalypse Australia series that has a pansexual mom with 2 kids who survive the apocalypse. Ta-da! Natasha!
Thanks, Pete. Like I said, if you want to check out my book, I've got one at Dark Recesses Press called Drex Blackout. But more also, just hit me up on Facebook too. You'll find all my updates there. I'm very super friendly with people. So thanks again for having me on the panel.
Of course, of course.
And then
EC Godhand, bring it.
Again, I'm Emily. I have the Heartfire Healer series. If you want to read about a healer in LitRPG, I used to main Disc Priest back in World of Warcraft, like circa, Wrath of the Lich King era. So if you want like a discipline priest who can heal foes and own foes, go read hers. There's also maybe some implied homosexuality, so be warned about that. And then if you want to follow me on any sort of social media, almost everything would be /GodhandAuthor for my Patreon, Facebook, any of those, hit me up. You can follow all of my new stories be posted on the Patreon as they come out.
Thank you for answering that and for being a healer in WoW. That shit is fucking priceless. How about
I am Kit. My series that's most popular is The Crafting of Chess. I have other books. I tend to write things that are not to market, so techno wizards and gamblers and kind of mix of art and heist books. It's just fun things, If you want to go read something that's not quite usual, just look up my name and all my stuff's on Amazon.
Excellent. And let's end on you, JP.
JP Valentine, also known as Nixia. You can find all 3 Nothing Mage books and all 4 books from this trilogy is broken available on Amazon and Audible. My serial Dungeon Devotee is available up on Royal Road and Patreon, and my latest project, a cultivation story set in space, is also up on Patreon, patreon.com/DastyWrites.
Space cultivation, that's fucking fantastic.
Yeah, dude, I want to have a look at that one.
All right, so if you're nerdy enough or queer enough, join the Discord, jump in. Thanks for dropping by. Identity and Sexuality, Representation in LitRPG. This is Rose Reynolds. We out. Do we do that? We out?
We out.
Yeah.